The unexpected death of Eric Forrester shook the foundation of Forrester Creations and the Forrester family itself, sending shockwaves throughout the business world and leaving everyone questioning the future of the company. Eric, the patriarch who had built Forrester Creations from the ground up, had been the glue that held the family together for decades. His sudden passing left behind not only a legacy of fashion and innovation, but also a fractured family, filled with animosity, distrust, and unanswered questions. It all began when Eric collapsed one afternoon during a family dinner at the Forrester estate. The moment had seemed like any other. Dinner was being served, laughter filled the air, and family members were discussing upcoming fashion shows, new designs, and various business strategies. But within seconds, everything changed. Eric's face turned ashen, and he fell forward, unresponsive, collapsing into his chair. The chaos that followed was immediate. Steffi, Ridge, and all of Eric's children rushed to his side, trying to revive him as the housekeeper called 911. But it was too late. Eric Forrester, the man who had been the heart and soul of Forrester Creations, was gone. The family was plunged into a deep, unrelenting grief, but they would soon learn that Eric's death would be the beginning of an even more complicated and divisive chapter. Days later, as the family gathered in the Forrester estate's formal sitting room to discuss funeral arrangements and their shock over Eric's death, they received word that Eric's lawyer had called for an urgent reading of his will. Tension filled the air as they convened in the grand office, with the family's future hanging in the balance. The will was to be read in front of all the Forrester children, their spouses, and the Forrester executives. Eric had always been the unifying force in the family, the one who made decisions, resolved conflicts, and guided them through the highs and lows of their fashion empire. But as the lawyer began to read the will, it became clear that Eric's final wishes would tear the family apart. The first surprise in Eric's will was the fact that the majority of his personal fortune was left not to his children, but to Forrester Creations itself, with a large portion allocated to charitable causes and fashion scholarships in his name. However, it wasn't the charitable donations or the company's future that caused the most stir. The real shock came when Eric's intentions for the leadership of Forrester Creations were revealed. Eric had decided, in his final days, that the future of the company would not go to the eldest son, Ridge, or the most business-savvy daughter, Steffi, but to a third party, someone entirely unexpected. Eric's decision was a bold one, leaving his children scrambling to understand why he would choose a path that seemed to go against the very grain of the family's history. The will stated that Forrester Creations would be led by Steffi and Ridge jointly, at least for the time being. But Eric had set one condition that none of them could have anticipated. If Steffi and Ridge failed to resolve their differences or could not come to a consensus in their leadership, the power would transfer to none other than Thomas Forrester, Ridge's son. The very son who had often been seen as the wild card of the family, the one with the greatest ambition, but the most unstable temper. Eric had entrusted his company's future to Thomas in the event that his elder children could not work together. This clause sent a wave of shock through the room. Ridge, Steffi, and even their spouses were all stunned by the revelation. How could Eric, who had always seen Ridge as the rightful heir to his empire, have left the future of Forrester Creations in the hands of Thomas, a man whose personal and professional life had been marred by mistakes, scandal, and a thirst for control? The shockwaves rippled further as Ridge, unable to hide his emotions, voiced his disbelief. He had always considered himself the natural leader of Forrester Creations, the one who had worked side by side with his father for years, learning the ins and outs of the company. To hear that Thomas, who had spent years sabotaging his relationships and making questionable decisions, would one day take over if Ridge and Steffi couldn't agree was more than Ridge could handle. "This is insane," Ridge exclaimed, his voice rising in frustration. "Dad knew how hard I worked for this company." How could he do this to me? To all of us. Steffi, equally stunned, stood silent for a moment, her eyes darting around the room. I can't believe he would think that Thomas could ever lead Forrester Creations, she said quietly, her voice strained with disbelief. We've all seen the chaos he's caused. How could Eric think that he would be the one to step in when the time came? But Eric's will had made it clear, if Ridge and Steffi failed to work together, the company would be handed to Thomas. This stipulation set off a storm of tension, with the Forrester family members now fighting not just for control of the company, but for the future of their relationships and their legacy. The stakes had never been higher. The battle for control of Forrester Creations quickly became a war of egos, with Ridge and Steffi both feeling betrayed by Eric's final wishes. While Steffi had always felt she was the most capable and deserving of leadership, Ridge had assumed that Eric would pass the mantle to him. The two found themselves at an impasse, unable to agree on the direction they should take. Neither could back down without feeling like they were giving up what they had worked so hard for. As the days passed, the tension between them only grew. But the real danger to the family came from within. Thomas, who had been quietly plotting his ascent to the top for years, saw this as his chance to take what he believed was rightfully his. With Ridge and Steffi at odds, Thomas began to make moves to position himself as the next leader of Forrester Creations. His charm, his intelligence, and his uncanny ability to manipulate situations to his advantage made him a dangerous player in the family feud. He was determined to be the one to take the company to new heights, even if it meant sacrificing his relationships with the very people who were supposed to be his family. The situation quickly became more than just a business rivalry. It was a fight for survival. The Forrester family began to splinter as old wounds were reopened and long-standing resentments surfaced. Ridge, Steffi, and Thomas all had their sights set on control of the company, but no one could agree on the path forward. The bitterness and animosity reached a boiling point, and soon accusations and blame were flying in every direction. Ridge blamed Steffi for being too focused on her own ambitions, accusing her of undermining his efforts to keep the company on track. Steffi, in turn, felt that Ridge had always treated her as the second in command, never fully acknowledging her contributions to the company. Thomas, meanwhile, capitalized on the growing divide, positioning himself as the only one who could restore order and take the reins of Forrester Creations. In the midst of this chaos, Brooke Logan, Ridge's wife, and Taylor Hayes, Steffi's mother, both tried to play the role of peacekeepers. But the tensions between Ridge and Steffi were too deep, and Thomas's ambition was too powerful for anyone to calm the storm. The family that had once been united in their shared legacy now found themselves at odds, with each member determined to hold on to their power and influence within the company. The conflict reached a fever pitch when Ridge and Steffi finally reached a breaking point, and the board of directors was forced to intervene. In a dramatic showdown, the board voted on who should take control of Forrester Creations. Ridge and Steffi both made passionate arguments, while Thomas lurked in the background, quietly gaining support from some of the more ambitious executives within the company. As the board cast their votes, the air in the room was thick with tension. Ridge, Steffi, and Thomas all waited anxiously, knowing that the vote would determine the future of the family and the company they had worked so hard to build. When the final vote was tallied, the result was nothing short of shocking. The board had voted in favor of a new, unprecedented leadership structure. Thomas would become the new CEO of Forrester Creations, with Steffi and Ridge serving as co-chairs under his direction. The news was met with disbelief and outrage. Ridge and Steffi were forced to accept Thomas's leadership, a decision that not only fractured the family further, but left deep scars that would take years to heal. Eric's death had set in motion a chain of events that no one had anticipated. What was once a family business built on love, trust, and mutual respect had now become a battleground for power, control, and legacy. And as Thomas stepped into the role of CEO, the Forrester family was left to pick up the pieces of what remained of their shattered empire. In the end, the death of Eric Forrester had sparked more than just a battle for control of Forrester Creations. It had revealed the true nature of the family's dynamics, exposing the deep-rooted resentments, rivalries, and ambitions that had long been hidden beneath the surface. The future of Forrester Creations was now uncertain, and the family's once promising legacy seemed to hang in the balance, torn apart by their own desires and betrayals. As the dust settled on the Forrester estate and the unexpected leadership change left everyone reeling, a new player emerged in the family's ongoing saga. Donna Logan, the youngest of the Logan sisters, who had often been relegated to the sidelines in the business world, now found herself in the thick of the battle. Donna had always been a passionate supporter of the Forrester legacy, and her love for Eric had been genuine, but she had remained largely in the background while others, Ridge, Steffi, Thomas, had taken the reins of the family business. However, with Eric's sudden death and the chaotic distribution of power within Forrester Creations, Donna saw an opportunity to assert herself in a way she had never done before. As Ridge, Steffi, and Thomas struggled to navigate their fracturing relationship and their roles within the company, Donna, armed with her legal knowledge and her understanding of the Forrester family's business intricacies, made a bold claim. She had the right to inherit everything Eric had built. The Logan family had always been connected to the Forresters through marriage, but Donna had her own reasons for believing she could lay claim to the entire Forrester empire, not just a fraction. Her connection to Eric, albeit by marriage, gave her legal standing. She wasn't just a passive figure. She had been deeply involved in the company over the years, contributing in ways that were often overshadowed by the more dominant voices in the family. But now she was determined to reshape the future of Forrester Creations in her own image. The announcement came as a bombshell. At a tense family gathering where Ridge, Steffi, and Thomas were still trying to reconcile their roles, Donna stood up in front of the family and declared, "I am Eric's legal wife, and I have the right to inherit everything. This company is as much mine as it is anyone else's." The Forresters have always seen themselves as the heart of this company, but it's time we remember where we came from. It's time we honor the legacy of the Logans too. Her words hung in the air like a challenge, a statement of intent that shook the family to its core. "Donna, what are you saying?" Ridge asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You're not a Forrester by blood. You were married to my father, yes, but that doesn't give you the right to take over everything. This is a Forrester family business." Donna's eyes locked with Ridge's, her expression unwavering. "I'm not just a wife, Ridge. I'm a Logan. And the Logans have always been a part of this company. It's time we change the way this family operates. Forrester Creations will no longer be just about the Forresters. It's about the legacy of the Logans too. And as for your leadership, this is no longer just your company to run. This is mine now too." Steffi, still reeling from the shifting power dynamics, stood up, her voice rising with anger. "Donna, you're out of line. My grandfather founded this company. My father has been its leader for years. You can't just waltz in here and claim that everything is yours. We've worked hard for this." Donna's lips curved into a smile, a mix of sadness and determination. "You're right, Steffi. I haven't been in the spotlight like you, Ridge, or even Thomas. But that doesn't mean I haven't contributed. I've supported Eric, I've supported this company. I've given everything I had to this family, even when I was told my place was behind the scenes. Well, not anymore. It's time to honor what I've given and take what's mine." The tension in the room was palpable. Ridge shot a glance at Steffi, then at Thomas, both of whom looked equally stunned and unsure of how to proceed. Donna wasn't just making an emotional plea, she was claiming legal and business ground. She was challenging the very foundation of the Forrester legacy. "I'm not just talking about a share of the company," Donna, Ridge replied, his voice now laced with the sharpness of a man used to being in control. "You want to take it all? Fine. But don't think you can walk in here and change everything overnight. This company has a name, a history. It's been Forrester Creations for decades. You think you can just erase that and change it to Logan?" Donna's gaze never wavered. "Why not? The Forresters have been the face of this company, but it's the Logans who have been its backbone. And this company, if it's to survive in the future, needs a new perspective. I'll bring reform, I'll bring change. I'll make Forrester into something that truly represents the combined legacy of both families. It's time to evolve, Ridge. To adapt. And the first step is to rebrand this company, *Logan Creations star. The room fell into stunned silence. The very idea of rebranding Forrester Creations to Logan Creations was nothing short of revolutionary. It was an audacious move that would forever alter the company's legacy. Ridge, Steffi, and Thomas were paralyzed for a moment, struggling to comprehend the implications of Donna's words. Could she really pull this off? Could she truly alter the very name of the company that had been built from the ground up by the Forrester family? Ridge's face darkened with fury. "You can't be serious. This company has always been Forrester Creations. We're not changing the name. We're not rewriting history." Donna's expression softened slightly, but the steely determination in her eyes remained. "It's not about rewriting history, Ridge. It's about honoring the future. If we want Forrester Creations to survive, it can't just be a name tied to the past. It needs to be a name that reflects the strength of both families, the Forrester legacy and the Logan one. Logan Creations will represent the future, a future we can all build together." As Donna spoke, it became clear that she wasn't just trying to gain control of the company, she was pushing for a complete transformation. She saw Forrester Creations not just as a business, but as a symbol, one that needed to evolve and grow, shedding its old skin to thrive in a changing world. But not everyone saw it that way. For Ridge, Steffi, and Thomas, Donna's plan felt like a betrayal, a complete reimagining of everything they had worked for. And just as quickly as the conversation had begun, the arguments between family members escalated, each person trying to assert their claim over the company. Ridge accused Donna of using her marriage to Eric as leverage, while Steffi claimed Donna was only interested in taking what was rightfully theirs. Thomas, always the opportunist, saw Donna's boldness as an opening for his own ambitions. "Maybe this is the change we need," he said, his voice calculating. "Maybe it's time we made Forrester Creations more than just a family-run business. Maybe we should really consider a merger, Logan and Forrester. The future needs both families." Steffi shot him a glare. "You don't get it, Thomas. This is not about a merger. This is about Donna trying to take what's ours, and we can't let her get away with it." Donna looked at her family, the people she had always supported, with an air of finality. "You all have your opinions, but I'm not backing down. This company is mine now, and I will make sure it thrives. Whether you're with me or against me doesn't matter. The name Logan Creations will become a force to be reckoned with in the fashion world." As Donna's declaration settled into the room, the Forrester family was once again divided, fractured by ambition, legacy, and the fight for control of an empire that had been built by blood, sweat, and determination. The very name of the company was now in question, and with it, the future of the Forrester family. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Donna Logan was not backing down. She would fight for what she believed was hers, and the battle for Forrester Creations was only just beginning.